Uh, oh, thanks, Rebecca. So, hi everyone. If you're watching the recording, you haven't missed anything. This is the just the overview of where we're at. We've done the recognize session, we've done the interpret session, and now today we're doing the align session where we're bringing in our inner intelligence with logical thinking. So, Rebecca, if we could go to the next slide, I'm just going to go briefly of what we've already talked about. So this is from the recognize session. As you see on the left side of the column, it's some intuitive signals, which I advise individuals that this paints the bigger picture. It scopes the problem set. It sets the direction. And then on the right side are some logical signals. This is specific for job searching and job pivoting, specifically for you all. And keep in mind, these different signals will be noted in a later diagram. It'll be look like a figure eight, which I'll talk about soon, but just want to briefly recap what we did during the recognize session. If we go to the next slide, Rebecca. Perfect. So this is where we start to look at or set the scene with interpreting our inner signals. This is from last week's interpret session. So if you look on the left-hand column, these are just uh, general frameworks on how to go about interpreting your inner signals. And on the right side is creating the environment for interpreting your inner signals. The best way to optimize understanding your physical responses, your emotions, and intuitive messages is through a space that's set for calm and not urgency. And that's really important. So just want to hit that home. If we go on to the next slide, Rebecca. So this is just some scenarios that we discussed last week where you can think about the different scenarios, and this is to prompt questions to be curious about your inner intelligence. So you have things like job fit. Does the job that you're looking for, does it feel right in your body? Does it excite you? Does it draw you in? Another sort of situation that you can start to question and be curious about your inner signals is the environment. Um, the environment that you're in currently, the environment that if you're searching for a job, will it be expansive for you? Will it be constricting? How is it pulling you forward? Is it setting yourself up for the best version of you? All those different things. And then I'll just hit home. Another key aspect, number six here on the bottom right, is looking at energy. So when you follow your energy patterns, just generally speaking, you can start to understand where your body is pulling you toward and where it might be pushing you away from certain opportunities. Because based on energy levels, we are either in a constrictive sort of uh, container, if you will, or a more expansive one for growth. So as you start to notice where your energy is and how it's being used and the boundaries that you create, you can start to understand how your inner intelligence or the inner decision process is impacting your decision making. Rebecca, we go to the next slide. And then we ended with this chakra system, which I know it can be quite complicated, but I wanted to just hit home that there are different ways to have sort of a status check, sort of signals and monitoring process as you go through interpreting your inner signals, especially as you look at physical sensations throughout the body. So if you're being underreactive or overreactive, or if you're more in a balanced state, you can use this chart if it resonates to have sort of a meter, if you will, to help evaluate your inner intelligence. And it's just sort of a status check to help you evaluate where information is drawing you toward or pulling you toward. And then for today, let's go on to the next slide. So we're going to do a short icebreaker, just sort of um, break up the non-chatter that I've gotten. So in the chat, if you don't mind, these are three scenarios that we're going to talk about what feels aligned. So, in the first scenario, we have a promotion on the upper part of that image. It's all sort of the benefits of getting a promotion. You get more money, you get more visibility. But on the bottom side of that image, you're like having some constriction around the opportunity. So that's scenario number one. Scenario number two is if you're in a safe relationship. I know this can be maybe a challenging topic, so we don't have to go with this scenario, but is a life situation that many people go through, myself included. So as you'll see, on the top half of the image, there's a lot of positive things about the relationship, but on the bottom part of the image, there's more to description on some things that make you question. Okay, great. We have a number three. And then the last scenario is the career pivot. So you are finding that the career that you're in may not be as fun or exciting, but you're staying because it's safe and it's reliable and dependable and familiar. So out of the three scenarios, which put in the chat on one, two, or three, which one you would like to just briefly talk about to help explore what feels aligned. Okay, number three. Okay, all right. Overwhelmingly number three, which makes sense, for the group we have here, which is fantastic. Okay, so in scenario number three, you see in the upper part of the image, you have like a path, and there's like question marks around the individual of which direction to go, and then you see sort of bullet points below that on what the individual might be thinking or considering. What do you feel uh, would require for this individual to step down one path or another? Like if so the question is, um, what information would you need to decide to stay at your current job or to leave? And I'll put this question in the chat. Um, would you use, for example, what you're feeling or more? Okay. I love situations where you don't have any control. We have one comment about that. Okay, certainty around the risk of the alternative. Yep, certainty around money. Okay, yeah, money is very important. If you could be more comfortable taking a risk, yeah. Tammy, that's a great point. Salary and benefits, yeah. Anything else? Yeah, especially health insurance. That's really important. Salary, yeah. Work-life balance, also great example. Trying to transfer experience. Yep, trying to transfer your experience. Yeah, no choice. Yeah, that's a tough one, but definitely a great reality culture. If I do feel ready to leave, yep, comfortable. Okay. So this is fantastic. We'll prove upon the improve upon the old one. That's a good point. Or is it just different? Yeah, so you can see just based on the answers that have been provided, there are a lot of different ways to think about or consider what feels aligned. And for me, alignment is a situation where logically it makes sense to you, but energetically it feels right in your body. It has the right vibe, it has the right resonance. And so when those two items come together, everything is in sync and you're in synchronization with yourself and the surroundings that you're in. And that's the ultimate state of feeling what feels aligned. Um, but as I look over the answers in the chat, it ranges. It seems like it's very you'll have a lot of logic centric individuals in the group. I didn't get many vibe centered answers. So But this is good to know. All the things that were mentioned are super important. So let's go ahead, wrap up the next slide. So now we're going to go into the meat of today's lesson, or the main uh, framework. And okay, yeah, Tammy, that's a good point about being. I like your humor there. Um, so as we look at this diagram, this is my personal diagram that I have put together through my career at the FBI and through my expertise with the Akashic Records. Just as a refresh, I'll put what I just said in the chat window. This is the intuitive modality that I use to understand my inner decision-making process. Um, and so today, the goal is really about building or understanding how to build your own decision advantage system from inner and outer coherence and ultimately having synchronization. This decision-making system will help with reducing uncertainty and blind spots. It can be a resiliency tool for developing inner trust. It will help mitigate mental bias. Based on the answers, I got a lot of mental centric cues that are really important to everyone here. And then it will also help with alignment-based execution. So helping you make decisions that integrate both systems. And then finally, it will start to create an integrated intelligence architecture, because I came from the intelligence community, but giving you a framework in your own internal standard operating procedure to move forward. Um, and with this diagram, the goals are having your gut direction and strategy, your mental strategy overlap. So when only intuition is active, you could feel inspired, but things might be chaotic. So you leave out that logical execution. Whereas when only logic is active, you feel safe, but you feel stuck. There's that stuck feeling. You're like, okay, what do I do next? I'm not really feeling it. So there's a mismatch, if you will. But when both are integrated, you feel clear and calm, and alignment essentially feels like excitement without anxiety. You have this pull, you're in flow, you're in the moment, you know when to do things, why to do it, when to do it. Everything's hitting on all cylinders. Yeah, I don't know if you could. Yeah, I'm going to dive into each step. That was a great question. We had a question. Can we have more explanation of each step? Yes. I'm going to do that next. I just wanted to paint the big picture, and then I will go into each little rectangle as you see it. Also, just want to hit home the other important aspect that we talked about throughout the other two sessions. The key position is maintaining neutrality throughout the entire process. When I mean neutrality, it's a approach, and it's in a stance of observation, doing your best not to input subjectivity into all the different data points. Yeah, lack of attachment, Blake, that's a good point there, is also an aspect of it. But attachment also has energetic ties, which can complicate this decision-making process. But it all is, to your point, it is a part of the overall system, yes. That's a great call out. So now we're going to go through each little rectangle as you see it. We're going to start with the logical side, or as I describe it, more of the outer decision process. What you see, your five senses, see, hear, feel, touch. Thanks, Rebecca, for zooming in. Feel, touch, taste, so on and so forth. So this is also called the intelligence cycle. So coming from the FBI, all these different blocks. You could look up the intelligence cycle in Google. There's different variations, but this is essentially it. And the intelligence cycle is another way of describing how every individual gathers stimulus, gathers information, processes it, analyzes it, and then makes a decision. But in the intelligence community, you have requirements, which is essentially, in human speak, it's like, what do I want? What do I need to know? Then we have planning and direction is essentially, where do I want to go with that information that I need to know? Then you collect the information. So you gather, you do searches on Google, maybe use ChatGPT, talk to a friend, a book, whatever resource you need to go. Then the next step, processing and exploitation, is you think about it, you ponder about it, you do maybe a pros and cons of what you just came across. Then, if you want to go deeper, you can do analysis, and production is more about putting the pieces together, doing that critical thinking, removing data points that no longer are pertinent. Then the dissemination and integration process is that's the last step, whereas you've come to a conclusion, your analytic judgment, it makes sense to you, you have your supporting evidence, and then you move forward. And then you start the whole process all over again. Um, but this is, in a nutshell, the outer decision process. In a simple terms, what we do day to day when we're looking at all the decisions that we have to make. The more, I would say, lesser used decision process is the inner cycle. Yeah, Tammy, that's a great point. Um, Often when we're looking at all the different steps in the outer decision process, analysis paralysis is complicates things and can put a hank in the process. One way to counterbalance that is which is a great segue, going to the inner decision process. So, Rebecca, we could go down, zoom down a little bit. Okay, so this is the other half of what's available to you at all times. So, intention is essentially requirements. After I go through these 6 steps, I will also provide a little bit more advanced nuance of how the inner decision process connects to the outer decision process. But I will do that next. So first, the intention step. This is the energy that you bring forward. It's similar to requirements, but from your body, what intention do you want to have with your decision? Next, once we have our intention identified, we then put focus on that intention. So we bring energy to whatever is important to us. Next, engagement is essentially taking action in some way to what we put attention on. And when we engage, we're essentially having our body move forward and our focus move forward on that certain point of interest. Next, as I mentioned before, having a stance and approach of neutrality is very important. So this next step of observation and witnessing is bringing a deeper sense of awareness to your decision point. It is having that bird's eye view, if you will, of what's happening to yourself, what's happening to those around you, what's happening to the bigger picture, whatever scoping you can have on the observation and witness step. Next is attunement, which means taking your signals that you're observing and then refining them to the point where you know what your inner signals are telling you. So from last week, when we did the interpret step, this is to help with attunement, to refining that energetic signal, if you will, to be more in coherence with yourself. And the last step here is when you finally refine that signal, you synchronize it to yourself, and you gain greater awareness of what's happening within your body, within your surroundings, and with the individuals you're engaging with, um, and so forth in the greater community as well. But this is the inner decision process. And this is from my work in the Akashic Records. Essentially, when I am doing Akashic Record readings, I use all of the inner decision process to help individuals move forward with grace and self-trust. Um, and so these are the two uh, databases, if you will, the inner decision process and the outer decision process. So with that in mind, let me just pause and ask, does anyone have any questions on that? Because the next concepts I bring forward are a little more advanced and could be complicated. Okay, great. I guess that was straightforward. Um, uh, yeah. So, yeah, whomever I'm talking to, aside Adam Dickinson, the intelligence cycle is a foundational framework for the U.S. government agencies. I think there's 17 now, but yeah, it's a way. There are certain agencies that do certain missions and capabilities, and yeah, it's a great thing to know about. Yeah, okay, no questions. Okay, perfect. All right, we're going to dive into a little bit more advanced concepts with this image. So Rebecca, if you could zoom out a little bit. Go up to the, yeah, we're still on this image. Yeah, so Sue, we're going to talk about the feedback step. So, as I mentioned before, uh, your inner decision making process and your outer decision making process are related and are in congruency with one another. So requirements are related to intention. So as you look for things outside of yourself that you feel you need to feel safe, to help guide you, this is also related to the intention that you create behind it. Next, so essentially, your external goals must match your internal desire. If not, there's a potential for burnout. Next, if we look at planning and direction, it's congruent to attention. So, as you start to move forward with your planning and you start to pay attention to that, what you're doing is this is where your focus determines what you create. Um, so they are in congruency. Next, if we look at collection, as you gather information, and then engagement, what you emotionally engage with determines what data you gather. So if you're having engagement that's misaligned, you'll have like this distorted collection, meaning you could gather information logically that is skewing your perspective of reality. So just keep in mind that as you collect information, you gather information, it's in congruency with the engagement, which is the inner decision process. Next, processing is in congruency to witness and observation. In this step, you cannot really process well if you cannot observe neutrally. So, as I mentioned before, neutrality is very important because it helps maintain clarity in the signals that you're receiving. Um, Witnessing is the essentially the internal processing refinement stage, if you will. Next, analysis is in congruency to attunement. So attunement essentially mitigates groupthink, over-reliance on any sort of precedent, data security paralysis. And what this does is this is where intuition fills intelligence gaps. It brings in those intuitive messages that you may not have considered. Um, oh, Tammy, yeah, I didn't realize that, but that's great. A great realization. Tammy had mentioned that these topics sound familiar to the book of The Art of Thinking Clearly. So that's good to know, Tammy. I appreciate that. Um, Next, dissemination and synchronization of information sorry, dissemination is in congruency to synchronization. So if your internal and external messaging are not synchronized, you essentially lose coherence, you lose self-trust. There's a rub where you're having a hard time trusting yourself and knowing what you're getting logically and inwardly. So they are also in congruency. So as you look at um, things going forward, just sort of recapping, your intuition or inner decision making process helps with inner calibration. It provides signal recognition, it provides emotional data, it provides resonance check, it provides an expansion versus constriction, and flow state awareness. Whereas the outer decision process, or more of your logical side, it provides logical structuring. And what that is, you could use different techniques such as scenario mapping, you could test your assumptions, you could do risk framing around a certain situation. You could do some if-then analysis, meaning if this happens, then this might happen. If that happens, then this might happen. Um, yeah, so great question. We had a question of, did I mention why the inner cycle goes counterclockwise? So during my experiences of doing intelligence analysis for the FBI, the clockwise nature of the outer decision process is sequentially what is supposed to happen. But in reality, in practice, it doesn't happen like step by step. All of these different steps happen at the same time, they overlap, and so on and so forth. However, the intention behind the outer decision process is to go in these sequential clockwise steps. Similarly, when you switch the energetic signature of your logical thinking and your inner decision knowing, the energy shifts. So often there's a phrase where things that you see outwardly are a mirror of what's happening to you inwardly. So there is a juxtaposition of what is happening within your body and is what is occurring outside of your body. So that's why the inner decision process in my diagram is counterclockwise to the clockwise nature of the outer decision process. Okay, hopefully that was these are more like great question, but I these are, yeah, definitely more of advanced explanation. So yep, please feel free to let me know if I can clarify. Okay, and then just sort of rounding out this diagram, what is happening? Your body is running signals. It's running the desires, what you focus on, what you emotionally invest in, what you notice internally, and it develops your deeper sense making. Whereas your mind on the upper half of the figure eight is running simulations. It's creating narrative loops, it's risk forecasting, it's identity preservation, it's looking at control strategies, it's looking at pattern recognition, and it's looking at worst case simulations or situations. So when you start to combine the two is when you become essentially more in balance with yourself. Um, yeah, sorry. Yeah, this is I had a lot of material, so it can be complicated, but I do my best to simplify as much as possible. Um, it helps you to. Yes. So Tammy had a great question, and which Blake also hit on, which is the concept of attachment. So Tammy asks, it seems like the lack of attachment helps you to be more aware of what the decision process objectively you're in so that you can guide yourself back towards alignment. Yes, it definitely helps. Um, Often when I am uh, doing Akashic record readings or learning how to use my own intuition, free will is a big component. And so attachment and free will go hand in hand in this question because when you have attachment, you are essentially um, putting roots into the way forward for yourself. So if you are able to be more objective, there will be more possibilities. There will be more opportunities. But in practical terms, it's very difficult to have this in real time. But this is like the optimum sort of scenario. Okay. Um, and then just hitting this home, the inner output of your inner decision process is creating that bigger picture, scoping the problem, and then the outer decision process, the output is having an execution strategy in place or a strategy to execute. So these are just keep in mind the end goal with each um, outer decision process and inner decision process. Okay, let's go on, Rebecca. Just do a time. The next slide. So here is one example of combining inner decision process and outer decision process. This is where, for me, and what I've done in the past too, of integrating felt energy, which to me I would describe how does a situation feel? How do uh, people feel? When I was doing, for example, intelligence analysis and I was in flow, I could feel words and phrases. Like they just, when I would make an analytic judgment, I just knew that, okay, this puzzle piece fits well with this puzzle piece, and they come together, and this what needs to be said at this point in time. And then I would look at that logically and be like, okay, how do I explain that? So in this example, you have this is regarding looking at a job posting. So in this first step, how does the job posting feel to you? Does it feel expansive? Does it feel exciting? The requirements of the job. What does that um, feel like in your body? And you're essentially evaluating fit from your body's perspective. The next step is mapping your thought patterns. Logically, how are you looking at the job posting? Is it give you scarcity or fear, or does it give you growth and possibilities? So, starting to observe your own thoughts and how things might look. This is the final step on more of the attunement. So, step number two is more about getting ready to refine your attunement step. Then step number three is testing out that strategic alignment. So you look at different filters. You can look at market demand. You can look at your own skills. You can look at financial requirements and so forth. But step number three is integrating the outer decision process and more of a logical point of view. And then the last step is the feedback. So if you saw, oh, sorry, Rebecca, could you go back up to the previous slide? I think Sue also talked about the feedback uh, arrows. So if you noticed, there are these arrows with feedback. The inner decision process informs the outer decision process and vice versa, but they are constantly giving feedback to one another, and it helps strengthen your intuitive signals and logical signals or weakens depending on how in alignment you are in the present moment. So that's very important. So the feedback step is really important. So if you, Rebecca, go down to the next slide where we were. So this last step about following the energetic breadcrumbs, what that means is once you have things logically planned out and intuitively felt, the felt energy around it, you can continue to follow energetically what you're being drawn toward. And so with this job posting, do you like as you apply for it, for example, how do you feel around how the recruiters are treating you? How do you feel about the mission of the organization that you're applying to? And so keep that in mind that things that are in flow and that are of ease generally can help you be more in alignment. Um, and then let's do a exercise to kind of hit this home. If we could go on to the next slide, Rebecca. Oh, thank you, Megan. Yeah, I appreciate that. The energetic breadcrumbs. All right, so this is our case study where we're going to practice what I just shared. So the case study is you're leaving a job or leaving a stable job. So I'm glad you all picked scenario number three from the icebreaker. So if you look at the image, we'll start on the far left, what the logic says. You have actually a lot of the things you all put in the chat window, spot on, of what you consider logically. You have benefits, you have all these market uncertainty that you might be considering. You could be leaving a job um, that um, if you leave, you could damage your reputation. All these different things you could be thinking about. Next, in the second column, what your intuition is saying about leaving the stable job. You might feel stagnant. So in the upper image, you have this uh, situation where you're in conflict with yourself, essentially internally. You might feel misaligned with your leadership, and how that they may be treating yourself or the work environment or the project at hand, all these different things. But you feel in a vibe-like way um, how leaving a stable job is affecting you. So where logic in this situation and intuition are in conflict with one another, when you leave a stable job, you could be thinking, is this safe for me to leave a stable job, or is it going to put me into a path of expansion and growth? Um, and which direction do I want to go? Is it going to help me? Do I want to maintain my identity with where I have been? Is it familiar? Or do I want to go this path of, you could say, evolution, change, stepping into the better version of yourself, so on and so forth? Yeah, Sue, I like this point that you make about there are many physical manifestations that show up when you ignore your inner signals. Oh, 100%. It can even show up in your body as something that happens, but is a great call out. And a great segue to the last. Yeah, yep, 100%, Susan. Illness is basically a physical manifestation of it. And then this last column of where they meet, if you're in alignment and in synchronization with yourself and what logic is telling you, you can have more congruency in making impact, having a job that's sustainable with yourself and how you operate, and something that is in alignment with your purpose and something that's meaningful. Um, so with this image that we have on the screen, let me ask those who are here. If you're looking at I'm going to put in the chat window. If you're looking at both the logical side of this case study and intuitive side, what do you think for this particular person? We're just gonna make this up. Let's just say this person's name is Bob. If Bob is trying to um, make a decision based on the information you have in front of you, what would a decision look like that honors Bob for both his safety and expansion? What do you think Bob would need logically to move forward, and intuitively to move forward where he feels safe, but he's going in a direction that feels right? Can someone maybe either go off mic or put in the chat window what are certain uh, data points that an individual um, could have both logically and intuitively where he could go down this path where they both meet in sync? And if that question is not clear, let me know. It was clear when I was making these slides, so hopefully it came across that way. And if not, happy to explain what I meant by this case study. Okay, let me just pause a moment. All right. Well, for the sake of time, I'm just gonna provide the answer that I was meant to be coming across. Yeah. So, Sue, yes, great. Thank you. Staying in a job while also starting a job search. Yes, that's a great, simple, small first step that you can do that's in alignment, that makes sense, but is drawing you towards something that is expansive. Um, yeah, safety could mean money saved last. Yep, exactly. Staying put while knowing you have a bigger picture. Yep, it feels like so many. Yep. Tammy, that's a great insight. Accounting for risk. Uh-huh. I'm all right. Yep. Preparing for the transition, maintaining some grounding aspect. Yeah, so there are essentially what I'm gathering, just to summarize what I'm seeing in the chat, is taking a step that is slow, small, but positioning yourself into a direction that feels right in your body and that gets you excited. And with the human experience, just my personal views, that's what it's all about. As we, grow as individuals, that's sort of the ultimate goal. So with that in mind, let me look here. Uh, at my notes. Just want to summarize. So with this case study, yeah, Sue, oh yeah, great final example. Perhaps negotiating if you can to scale back to part-time while explore opportunities. Yeah, great answer. Thank you for providing that. So just to summarize, um, the sort of takeaways here, when you imagine making a full aligned decision, this is a question for you all. Does your body feel, well, hold on. When you're in alignment, let me rephrase that, and you're making a decision, some things you can consider. Um, Tamara, oh, I'm seeing the chat window. Yes, exploring, yes, 100%. Thank you, Tamara. So I just want to summarize as we end time here. When you imagine making an aligned decision, things you can consider does the decision feel tight? Does it feel neutral? Does it feel steady? Does it feel energized? Um, or another way you could think about it, does this alignment feel more like urgency? Does it feel like relief? Does it feel like pressure? Does it feel like this inner confidence that you're building within yourself? And the thing that is really important, oh, okay, yeah, okay, just a second. I will hit that in a moment on that image. Just let me summarize the things to consider. If you're feeling like you have to convince yourself of something, it is most likely not aligned. And you could say generally that your logical side is pushing you towards safety and security. Um, okay, let me go back to the question. Um, so the sweet spot regarding this image is integration, where in that figure eight that we had earlier, um, when you bring a sense of calm and neutrality, there's an allowance to happen where you receive with flow, with ease, information that will come to you naturally and that is meant for you and that is operating with who you are as an individual is meant to operate and function at its highest efficiency, you could say, or impact. So that's what this little thank you for pointing that out. This caption means when you start to merge your inner decision process with your outer decision process, that's what like the ultimate state of true alignment means. Does that help? Whoever, I know it says Adam Dickinson asked that question, but hopefully who was curious about it, hopefully that clarifies. Okay, thank you for the thumbs up. All right. As we sort of close things out, let me leave you with some closing reflections. Yeah, Rebecca, if you could pause here at this step. this is what we'll be talking about on our last session together, or one preview of an image to consider in our last session, which is taking action. Once you have your inner decision process and your outer decision process come together and have more of an aligned state, we'll be talking about different ways to look at situations as you take action and move forward. So these are just some green flags and green lights and red flags to consider as you move forward. But I want to leave you with this closing thought and a final point. When you look at the different systems, the different databases that you have available, which I describe logic as a database and intuition as a database, essentially. Um, you can ask yourself, is it safe for me logically? And intuition, is this truly for me? Is it for the best version of me? And then an alignment question can be, can I have it both? Can I have it to be both? Can I have them come together and not only be safe, but have it for me? Have a great question. Let's see. One, not productive move, but you're thrown into this one. Yeah. So, this might be a great point to hit on. I'm going to write this down. So there's a point in the chat about what about when you're not contemplating a proactive move, but you are thrown into a situation you have to deal with, an uncomfortable place to be. Um, uh, so there's a lot of additional considerations, which I'll do my best. I'm going to make a note of this to talk about in the next session, in the ACT session, because there is a lot of grace that's involved. There's a lot of self-love that's involved. There's a lot of self-leadership that's involved. Rebecca, yeah, could you go on to the next slide? Um, just yeah, this one here, just kind of remind what's happening. So on March 16th. But I will write that down for the individual that voiced that and address that in the next session next week on Monday. But yeah, there's a slight nuance with that. But any questions? I know we're kind of put in the chat window. I'm Tammy. I'm so glad this was helpful. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, so Rebecca, I'll hand it over to you. There's some great final questions here, but thank you all for coming. And yeah, feel free to put any final questions in the chat.